Alright, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD, or Application and Website Development Program, and in particular the AWD 1111 .NET Framework with Web Database class, I've been creating a series of video presentations based on the book for the class for the fall 2019 semester. As you can see on screen, the book is Pro ASP.NET MVC 5, an A-Press text by Adam Freeman. And as we look through, I have done lectures on chapters 1 through 12. I had some problems with 13, so I'm putting that one off for a while. And I've done 14, which, as you can see, brings me up to chapter 15. 15 and 16 are both on routing. I consider chapters 15 through 27 to be the last part of the book, meaning that part 1 was an intro to everything, chapters 1 through 6. Part 2, which goes through pretty much chapters 7 through 13, is the project on the book, the Sports Score project. And 14 through 27 explains the stuff that was discussed in chapters 1 through 14, or 1 through 13, I should say, in more depth and breadth of coverage. All right, so let's get to it. All right. As the author mentions here, before the introduction of MVC framework, ASP.NET assumed there was a direct relationship, so that if you requested a URL, that basically that's where you went. And that's the approach that was used for web forms, as it says, where each ASPX page is both a file and a self-contained response to a request, but it makes no sense for an MVC application where, as mentioned here, requests are processed by action methods in controller classes, and there is no one-to-one correlation to the files on disk. In other words, depending on where you are in a home controller, you're not necessarily going to always go to the same URL. There literally are a limitless number of URLs you could possibly go to, or limitless number of methods that you could call. All right, so to handle MVC URLs, as it says, the ASP.NET platform utilizes a routing system, which is discussed in this chapter. So the author shows us how to use the routing system, which the author says here has two basic functions. Number one, to examine the incoming URL and figure out which controller and which action inside of that controller is intended. And number two, to generate outgoing URLs. All right. These are the URLs that appear in the HTML rendered from the view. In this chapter, we're going to focus on defining routes and using them to process incoming URLs. As mentioned here, there are two ways to create these: convention-based routing and attribute-based routing. All right. Attribute routing is new to MVC 5, and both of these, both convention-based routing and attribute routing, are explained in this chapter. I'm going to give probably would be considered a more high-level overview of these in this chapter. All right? Have I used this stuff? Generally. How's that? Then in chapter 16, we'll talk about how to use those same routes to generate outgoing URLs. We'll also get into what are referred to as areas. So here's the lowdown breakdown for this chapter. I'm not going to read any of it to you. And let's get going. To demonstrate the routing system, we need a project to which we can add routes. So the authors created a new MVC application with an empty template called URLs and Routes. May look a little bit different to you. You'll see why in just a second. I'm actually going to call this one chapters 15, try it again, 15 and 16, because we're going to use the same one in both chapters, same project. We want this to be an empty with MVC chosen. Oops. Try it again. Empty with MVC chosen. I believe that's what we were supposed to do. To a solution they called the same name. I didn't do that. Also, I'm not selecting the unit tests. As mentioned previously, there's just not enough time, all right, to go through those. So there's our start. Empty I chose, MVC I chose. I did not do this, so this is not done. So anything that's in this chapter or the next that talks about unit testing, I'm not going to be going over. All right. The author says, I showed you how to create unit tests manually. This produces, yeah, you know what? We probably won't need, no, we won't need this. All right. To demonstrate the routing feature, we're going to add some simple controllers to the example application. I only care about the way in which URLs are interpreted in order to call action methods. So the view models are going to be string values in the view bag, which report the controller and action name. So they're not going to do much. First, create a home controller and set its contents to those mentioned on the bottom of 371 and on 372. So first, right mouse click, add controller, empty, home, we can remove the text that is generated by default because we're going to replace it with a text that's shown here and on the next page. All right, as you can see, there's not much in here. Our typical using statement, our namespace, URLs and routes, controllers, the name of our controller, home controller, which inherits from controller, one method, an index method, where we're just using viewBag to set the controller to home, to set the action to index, and to return, it says view action name. All right. So create a custom controller, set, create a customer controller, and set its contents to 15.2. So we're going to create another controller immediately. Remember that once we did the home, we've got a folder now that says home. Now that we've done the customer, we've got a folder that says customer. All right. Again, we will remove the code right away and replace it with the code that you see right here. Now we have two methods. An index method, which just will show customer index, and a list method, which will show customer list. Create an admin controller and have its content or its code match what's shown in figure 15.3. So again, one more. So there's that. Not doing very much, these controllers, as you can see. I specify the action name in all of these controllers, which allows me to define one view and use it throughout the example application. Create a folder called Shared in the Views folder. And add a new view there called actionname.cshtml. All right, we're not told, I don't think, to do anything special in here, so I'm not going to. Let's do a file save all because we have not done that yet. All right. As explained in part 1 of the book, Visual Studio will automatically try to figure out the URL you want the browser to request on the file when you start the debugger. This can become annoying quickly, so we're going to disable it by selecting URLs and routes properties from the Visual Studio project menu. Switch to the Web tab and check the specific page in the Start Action section. We don't have to provide a value, just checking it is enough. If we start the example app, we should see the response that's shown here by default. So let's double check and make sure that indeed that's the case. We've set this so we can close it now. Do another file, save all, although I don't have to do this. I'm going to do a build solution as I start here, and then I'm going to run the program. And as you can see, hopefully quickly, comes up and it says the controller is home, the action is index, which is what we'd expect. All right? All right, this is a good place to stop. It's a little bit early, but we're going to introduce URL patterns in the next lecture, so I'll be back with that one shortly.